Welcome to The Age Guide, the podcast where we give voice to older adults and caregivers, challenge ageism, and offer guidance to help you thrive on the journey ahead. I'm Gretchen Knowlton, your host, exploring the policies and ideas transforming the aging experience. This season, we're diving into what it really means to age well, from staying connected and keeping our minds sharp to finding our passion and building more age-inclusive communities. Today, we are joined by Billy Rogers. Billy has dedicated more than 40 years to advocating for LGBTQ people in Southern Illinois. His work is grounded in both action and lived experience, shaped by his role as a caregiver and a longtime community leader. As president of Golden Rainbows of Illinois South, Billy works to ensure LGBTQ elders and those aging with HIV have access to support, connection, and resources. His advocacy extends statewide through his governor-appointed role on the Illinois LGBTQ Aging Commission and as an advocate with the Illinois Department on Aging, where he helps elevate the needs and voices of older adults. Whether through organizing, training, or storytelling, Billy centers connection and community in his work, and I'm so excited to talk with him today about the aging experience for LGBTQ plus older adults. Welcome, Billy. Thank you so much for being here.
Wow, Gretchen, thank you for having me. And I just want to tell everybody right now, Happy Pride Month.
So glad you could be with us during Pride Month. I'm sure you're super busy this month, but we really want to celebrate with you, and it's the perfect time to have you on the show. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
To help set the stage for this conversation, can you give listeners a sense of the size and diversity of the older LGBTQ population and why it's so important that aging services and communities are paying attention to this group right now?
That's a very good question. And I want to tell you that these are estimates. Getting really good data on numbers of the LGBT community is very difficult. And it's even more difficult right now during this current administration, but getting the data is so important. And there's various reasons as to why folks, even if they do have a box to check, maybe won't check it. And right now, during this current culture, a lot of folks refuse to check the box in fear that there could be some bad outcomes from it. They could be outed, so to speak. But to answer your question, there's estimates, there's about 2.7 to 3 million LGBTQ adults in the United States.
Wow.
I want to say for Illinois, there's roughly 120,000 aging LGBTQ folks in the state of Illinois. And I'm going to give a shout out right now to the report and the document Disrupting Disparities that was done by Illinois AARP as well as SAGE, Pride Action Tank, AIDS Foundation Chicago, Equality Illinois. I'm probably leaving someone out, but it's a very good document, a great body of work, and that's where we got some data.
Excellent and very helpful to kind of set the stage for a population that is increasingly challenged during this time, but also plays a significant role in our communities. And we may not always recognize that, but hearing those numbers is impactful.
It is impactful. There's a lot more than I think what most people really think. I will say we are we're known as the Stonewall generation. Many of us
Hmm.
are baby boomers, right? So we are the largest LGBTQ group to come out in the early 70s and now are approaching um, the ages where we need services.
Do you think those numbers are actually an undercount because of some of the fear that's out there, like you said, about checking the boxes and saying, yes, I'm, coming from this community?
I would say so. Yes. I'd say there was estimates.
Yeah.
I know it is, and I would say there's probably more. But there's
Right. Okay.
all kind of factors we're going to be getting into, I think, probably throughout this conversation that might shed a little light on as to why, perhaps.
And why that is. Okay, so let's go in a little further, a little deeper here. You've been involved in a lot of projects, both personally and professionally, to create spaces where LGBTQ individuals can connect, celebrate their identities, and build lasting friendships. What makes an environment a quote safe space? And can you provide any examples of what those look like?
This is a great question, and I have to dig deep on this one, particularly because defining safe space is very relative. Um, I'm going to use an example right here that's kind of startling. The Pulse nightclub in Florida was a safe space for the LGBT community until it wasn't.
Yeah.
So at any moment in time, a safe space can become unsafe. But that's a very dramatic approach to this. However, safe space is also relative to who your audience is, who you're with. It just depends on so many factors. There's intersecting identities and needs. A trans male may not feel comfortable in a group of cisgendered white gay males.
Hmm.
Do you understand what I said? They may not feel
Right.
safe in that environment, as well as, um, a trans woman may not feel accepted or comfortable or safe in a group of lesbians. And this goes way back. The Michigan Women's Festival is a great example of the issue in the LGBT community. They only allowed women who were born women into the Michigan Women's Festival. And at the time, as time evolved, the trans women community set up a renegade, a protest camp at the Michigan Women's Festival because they weren't allowed in. So again, you know what I mean? It's relative to the situation. So I hope that clears out, we try to create these safe spaces. I'm going to use a positive. I don't know. I don't want to sound negative about this, but Golden Rainbows of Illinois South, we have a program called Get Up and Get Out. The third Sunday of every month, my spouse and we had an LGBTQ campground it's been closed now for 10 years or more, but we ran it for 20 years. And it was for the LGBT community. We had people from all over the United States, Cuba, Europe, in our space, Australia. And so we have a great space. You know what I'm saying? We have pavilions, we
Mm-hmm.
have water, we have all these
Oh,
amenities.
cool.
So as the program, the third Sunday of every month, we have everyone out. And again, we provide it and call it a safe space. And it is a safe space, especially a lot of the trans community. Where can they go kayaking? Where can they go paddle boarding? Where can they go swimming? Where can they just come and be themselves in that safe space? So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of interesting as well. In rural communities, I think you might, well, not might, it's true. I'm born and raised in this area, and we have a very strong LGBT community. I would say because of Carbondale and the university there. The university was the second university in the United States to have a sponsored gay and lesbian organization. They didn't have the alphabet at that time when it was founded. It was just called the GPU, the Gay People's Union. So with that said, there's a lot of, LGBTQ history here in Southern Illinois. Well, but we didn't really get on the page of the lesbians over here, the gay boys over here. And at those times, the word trans was not even part of our language at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, we coexisted. And a lot of times in urban areas, you'd have the women's groups, women's libraries, a lot of women would gather in homes and different things. And there were gay lesbian bars, there's gay male bars, but then it can be broken down. What are you into? Like, you're into the leather scene. I mean, it gets very, very diverse especially in the urban
Mm-hmm.
communities. And since we don't have that diverse population, or no, those places in the rural communities, they pretty well stick together. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? So it's
yeah.
not unusual. Like, I think we had 26 people out here the first Sunday of May, third Sunday of May. I think probably, I want to say three-quarters of it was a trans community, which we're real happy. It's thrilled. It makes us very happy and proud to be able to offer that safe space. But I wanted to begin this conversation because it is relative.
So I hear what you're saying. It's really based on an individual and how they feel in a space. But I guess we also don't want to discourage people from trying to create a safe place because it's too hard. And it sounds like your answer to that is to ask questions and to ask people. So, building on this idea of safe spaces, we know connection and belonging is a key to aging well. It's key for all of us, right? Social connection is so important to everyone. So, how can we foster that sense of belonging and connection?
Well, this brings us back to one of the things I was thinking of earlier is as we age in the aging LGBT community, especially oftentimes in rural communities, they go back in the closet.
Why is that?
As you're entering the age where you need care, the services provided are not always LGBTQ friendly,
Mm,
whether it be healthcare, whether it be long-term care facilities, short-term care, housing. Just there's so many factors involved to what might and does occur. People often go back into the closet because they're in fear of how they are going to survive. Often many of us in the LGBT community do not have family. A lot of us, our family, not my family, but many families disowned a lot of the LGBT community, didn't want anything to do with them.
mhm.
A lot of the aging LGBTQ members are not married. They don't have kids. And as you age, your caregivers are your close friends, and that diminishes as we age as well because they have their
Right.
own set of problems. So isolation is a big problem in the aging LGBT community. And so encouraging those spaces is difficult. I know there's some programs throughout. I'm really happy as a statewide advocate to work with different AAAs throughout the state. And that I really get jazzed up about that. I just do. The AAAs I found have been incredible folks that are, doing some hard work, even with the adult protective services, there's a lot of
Mhm.
work being done. And I
And the
think you guys
AAAs are
encounter,
the area agencies on aging, right?
yes, I'm sorry. I forget to explain that not everyone knows that it's not the AAA auto service that you call.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the area agencies on aging. And when I first formed Golden Rainbows of Illinois South as a founding member, the first thing I did was reach out to our local AAA
Mhm.
and our local area agency on aging, Egyptian area agency on aging, and um, they welcomed us with open arms. They were actually trying to figure out how to reach the aging LGBT community, and it was just meant to be. And so we started talking about things like this, how we can create space, right?
Mhm.
And we've tried things. I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of our programming, and I'm not ashamed to say this, was like throwing spaghetti on the wall to see if it sticks. And we tried and you got to understand, in a rural community, we're serving 13 counties in Southern Illinois. The hub
It's
of
a
the
big
LGBT
area.
community, right, is Carbondale. And that's where a lot of the LGBT community does live in Carbondale, but they're everywhere in all the counties,
Mhm.
and there's so many things that get involved. We may have programs there here in Carbondale, but transportation is a big obstacle. Can they come
Mm-hmm.
and come to that safe space, if you will? So creating safe spaces in rural communities isn't as easy per se as it is in a urban area. And there's
Mm-hmm.
so many urban organizations. You can typically find something within your neighborhoods or et cetera. Transportation is better, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean we don't try to create safe spaces that, like our Get Up and Get Out program. We try the best to get our people within the 13 counties the information, and we try ride shares. We do different things to try to get people to be able to come to these safe spaces.
Mm-hmm.
So the barriers are, transportation, uh, isolation, just the fact that, they're getting older and they don't trust, which goes into another segment about healthcare, housing. There's so many layers to this whole situation of safe space, if you will.
Yeah. And these are barriers for all of us as we age, having difficulty with transportation, having difficulty finding good healthcare, but I think there's some unique challenges for the
Exactly.
LGBTQ community. Like you said, there's not as much extended family perhaps, and maybe your family is your chosen family of friends, and then my next question for you was going to be about intergenerational connections because it seems like that could be really helpful for a group that doesn't have a lot of biological family connection.
That is a great question. And I work with Sage a lot. In fact, I do some breakout rooms nationally, and we speak to rural issues, in the LGBT community. And I was asked a question about intergenerational from my colleague at Sage, and I was typing an email, which I've almost decided I didn't know I was creating a quote, but I feel like I was. So I kind of like to just throw this out there to you. Reflection and resilience are often defined by realizing that being fearless without consequence in our youth and the fact that knowledge is power as we age, along with the ability to pass on our lived experience, not as a do as I did, but as a clue to the journey ahead. That to me is a quote about how we should approach the intergenerational groups. Um, we've tried some things in Southern Illinois. We're still working on it. A person that I work with came up with the term grand gays instead of grandparents, grand gays. And I really resonated with that. And we talked to some folks just in the younger folks, trans folk, and a couple of them spoke up. You know what? I didn't have grandparents. I look at you as my grand gay. You know, I wish I would have had you in my life when I was growing up, etc. So, the aging LGBT community passes down the history. We paved the way
Mhm.
for the youth of today and the younger generations to be able to be and do and create what they are today. The youth is ever evolving. They're creating a new language. They can help us speak the language. The terminologies, I mean, it's disgusting at times, but as I said earlier, when I was coming out and growing up in the 70s, transgender was not even a topic, or the LGBTQIA was not even part of the language at the time, but now it
Mhm.
is. And our youth, they're incredible at having these conversations. They can teach us the language. We're not too old to learn, and they can help us with technology.
Right. So there's a lot of intergenerational sharing that can go on
It
there.
is. And this takes me to working, as on the commission, we had working groups, and subcommittees, if you will. I think they were referred to them in our commission. And we had one for housing, one for health, one for training and outreach, and one for aging with HIV. I'm on a subgroup right now, a working group through the older adults, the multi-sector plan on aging. And, in order to get these satellite projects going, it's going to require HUD. It's going to require some financing, some money. Do you know what I'm saying? We can always look at private, entrepreneurial donations, but it's right now under the current administration, we kind of had to put those plans on hold for a little bit because money is not available at this time for those kinds of projects. But that doesn't mean we're not going to do it. Things are going to change.
Right. Yes, it comes down to the budget in the short term, but in the long term, if this is something that people are pushing for, change can happen, right?
Yes, and we're not going to let this go. Before I got even involved with the state, with the commission, one of my goals as a community leader with Golden Rainbows of Illinois South was to have a retirement, a little retirement building, a long-term care facility, and a assisted living facility in Carbondale, because we are the hub of the LGBT community in Southern Illinois.
Mhm.
And that was funded in a sense to pay their staff, to make our staff want to be there and to provide this service for the aging LGBT community. So they didn't live in fear of where they were going, because, going to a long-term care facility is gruesome right now. And it's problematic. It really, really is. Most of them are for profit, and they're understaffed, they're underpaid. And my vision is to pay your staff and treat them as if they really have a career and a job and their work is important, and
Mhm.
give them a reason to want to come to work. I'm
Right,
optimistic.
and it's building that workforce. There's such a workforce shortage in caregiving,
Exactly.
in the paid caregiving workforce in general because of things that you've talked about. They're not paid a living wage. It's a hard job. Being a caregiver is one of the hardest things you can do, and you're working with a very vulnerable population, right? So we do need to talk more about how we pay people and value the work that they're doing, especially in those long-term care facilities. And you mentioned the challenge for people who are in the LGBTQ community and they go into long-term care and they sometimes feel like they have to go back into the closet. So that's another reason why this project is so important, to create again that safe space where people can be who they are and they can belong.
Well, that also, it's not just long-term care facilities. It's healthcare is another major
Mhm.
problem. And, after a lifetime of discrimination, stigma, and oftentimes violence within the Black and brown community, and especially our trans community, as we age, we do
Mhm.
not trust existing programs.
For good reason, right? That you said
I mean,
historically,
that's one of the
it's been
big
a
major
challenge.
obstacles we're facing. That's why I found it beneficial to team up with the Area Agency on Aging and try to bridge that gap. Uh,
Mhm.
because again, we have to convince the aging LGBT community they can trust those folks and these programs. We run into incidents, with this trust. There's a higher um, incident rate with, like, for lesbians and breast cancer and ovarian
Hmm.
cancer because they don't get the screenings.
Oh, right, because 'cause they're
As they age, they don't try. You know
not
what? Again,
comfortable with the healthcare
and
system. Mhm.
men do not, take care of their, there's prostate issues, there's all sorts of things. There are issues which leads to other problems. And with isolation, you have a higher rate of drug and alcohol abuse, which we all know that leads to depression. And
Right.
it's sad. And the isolation, it's really sad. And it does happen.
Mhm.
So, it doesn't just what we're talking about doesn't really it isn't specific to long-term care. It,
That's a
it's
good point.
it really isn't. And I'm
It's across systems at the macro
yes,
level in our communities across the board. Mhm.
yeah,
And like you said, it affects all kinds of marginalized communities.
truly.
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, you were appointed by Governor Pritzker to the Illinois Commission on LGBTQ aging. I'm so glad that you're on that commission. And you served for, was it 3 years? Are you still on the commission?
We are. The commission was going to sundown, I believe, this spring, but the commissions in Illinois got it. We have another year.
Okay. All right. So you still have more work you can do. You're still at the table, which is wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience has been like and some of the other projects that you're working on with that commission?
When I first started, um, I was honored and I was scared. I will tell you, I felt like I was experiencing imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Uh, Oftentimes, there's a new language when you start working with any of the Illinois Department of, you know what I mean? There is. It's like the
Yeah.
LGBTQ language. It's a whole different language.
Set of acronyms and way of looking
Exactly.
at things. Yeah.
So it took me a while to get my feet grounded, but I still held on to the concept working throughout our area agency on aging and connecting all of the 13 area agency on aging, at least try to connect them with an LGBTQ organization so they can work together to bridge the gap and create trust within the systems that we need to utilize right now as the aging
Mhm.
population.
Mhm.
So that's been exciting, and I've met so many. And working on the commission, well, as being appointed the statewide advocate, I was kind of suggested that I should meet with all these subcommittees as well when I could. So I was already dedicated to the housing subcommittee, but that meant that I was starting to sit in on the meetings with the committee subcommittee, with the training and outreach, with the HIV and aging subcommittee. So I found myself, involved in a little bit of everything. And I was also working with, again, some extraordinary people from different departments throughout the state, community members. It was just really, really, it was very uplifting. It was at times scary for me because,
Mhm.
again, I was learning the language, but now um, I feel very comfortable. you know,
Good.
I
That's why
do.
it's so important to be invited to the table, right?
Being at the table is important, which, that even though our commission is due to sunset, we have another 10 years that we can have a seat at the table with the multi-sector plan on aging. I mean, I feel like we need to be there. We have a seat at the table and we
Yes,
are
that's
being
important.
invited in, and we can give it the career review, if you will.
Perfect. We need that perspective.
I think
Yes.
so. And I really love my work. Um, I really do. I love the trainings we're doing. There's going to be mandatory trainings eventually from the way the legislation was written for the commission.
Oh,
Um,
good.
in the legislation, it said anyone receiving monies from the Department on Aging, uh, anyone had to take mandatory cultural competency training. We're still working on the actual training itself, but at
Mhm.
this time, I'm doing the out safe trainings, and we're showing, I trained, I believe, with
With us at Age Guide.
age guide. Thank you. I was able to train 190 people.
Mhm. It was a big group. We opened that up to whoever wanted to attend, and we got a huge showing for that. And so your work with the Golden Rainbows of Illinois South, right, offers support to individuals who are aging with HIV.
We include that group as well. And we include that in our mission. It's the aging population, those aging with HIV. We want to include that. And also, not everyone under that aging with HIV is in the LGBTQ community. There's a lot of Black
Mhm.
women that are aging with HIV, there's women in general are aging with
Mhm.
HIV, and we don't want to exclude them because they often don't have resources. So back to the question
It's a
with
good point.
the question with those aging with HIV and Golden Rainbows of Illinois South. There's so many factors with the aging with HIV that I don't think people realize. Um,
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because there's some unique challenges, and I think you're right, misperceptions, and
well,
people might not, like, fully understand what does this mean to age with HIV?
well, let's go back to our long-term survivors. They probably go back to the 80s, our lost years, under the Reagan years, where they wouldn't even fund any type of research for HIV and AIDS. It was sad. We buried our friends and our, it was a tough time.
Yeah.
So as we evolved, and now we have those aging with HIV that's 30, 40 years, you know, they're long-term survivors. They're incredible. But, that also comes with its own set of issues. For instance, there's the age acceleration that those aging with HIV experience, um, from all of
Mm.
those toxic drugs. I mean, like AZT, a lot of the first round of drugs were pretty toxic.
Oh,
And so now that we've developed into some incredible meds with now they can take you down to 0 level to a level of even not being non-transmittal.
wow.
You
It's
understand what I'm
come a
saying?
long
So we
way.
came a long way, but in that
Mhm.
process, a lot of those folks that have been on that, they have what's called their age accelerated in their bodies. So they may be 65, but they have the body of a 75-year-old.
Wow.
So there's other issues that jump up, like they may have more cardiovascular situations, more renal situations, more this and that. You know what I mean? Their
Mhm.
health care is a little different. And another thing is housing, again, is a problem. They were discriminated in housing back in the, if you had AIDS, you could, or HIV, yeah, you couldn't even rent. That's all
You were really
changed now.
isolated. Yeah.
Right, but as we have evolved, we came a long, long way. One of the things that I noticed in Southern Illinois, um, was food inequities. I felt like, and we were working on a grant because, I'll back up a minute. I found out that a lot of those aging with HIV, there's folks that own their own homes. They have a car. They work, but when they pay their mortgage, they pay their car payments, their insurance, their utilities, there's nothing left for food.
Mm.
Okay, so and that threshold for, at the time when I was doing my research for, say, SNAP benefits, say you made over $500 over that threshold, you were just out of luck.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm
Didn't
saying?
qualify.
And
Didn't qualify
even
for a
though
lot
they
of
didn't have
programs,
any
right.
money left, they were thriving members of our community, homeowners, et cetera, you know what I mean? But yet they still
Yeah.
didn't really have enough for food. Well, when you go to a lot of the food pantries, et cetera, that's all highly processed foods and
Mhm.
not really
Yeah.
good,
The
fresh,
affordable foods are
nutritional
not
food that these
healthy foods.
folks
Yeah.
want. So we have a farmer's market here in Southern Illinois. We have lots of local farmers. We have an online farmers market. And I tried to get a grant that we could increase because, like, I think the Area Agency on Aging gives supplemental vouchers that you can use
For food
at
for
the farmers
those
markets, et
farmers
cetera.
markets, yes.
So we wanted to bump that up at least $50 a month that they could have access. And we had a whole plan, but I guess what I'm saying is what I found is they didn't have access to really good, locally sourced, nutritious food. And I don't find I don't think, Southern Illinois is exclusive to that. There's farmers all over the state of Illinois. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yeah,
farmers markets everywhere.
right.
So I still haven't given up on the concept, but still, we always have obstacles, but we just try, and we in the queer community are resilient. We always
Had to
have
be.
been.
Mhm.
We took care of each other during the AIDS epidemic. The
Mhm.
lesbians, everybody pitched in. They did what they had to. We're not new to this. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're used to. I hate to say it, but we're used to being discriminated against, and
It's unfortunate. Right, but you
yeah.
have some resources and you share them. What about an older adult in the community who maybe feels unsupported or unwelcome? What resources would you point to? Where should they start?
Well, hopefully start with me or Golden Rainbows of Illinois South, Rainbow Cafe, anyone that can direct them, to our local organizations, to
Mhm.
direct them in some way. As an example, we had someone in Saline County aging. I got a call from a hub from the health department telling me about they knew of this phone. They heard about it in church and reached out to
Excellent.
me. So I did some digging. I reached out to this person. Her electricity had been turned off. She
Oh,
was on she had some sort of I can't remember the lung condition she had, but she had to have oxygen, et cetera, et cetera. LIHEAP was out of money, but I connected them with the Area Agency on Aging.
good.
I connected them with APS.
With Adult Protective Services.
But
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. See, I was talking about not knowing the language, and here I do it. I'm as bad. I'm
You've
guilty.
gotten comfortable with it now.
I have, yes. So Adult Protective Services, but the person was terrified. She didn't want to let him in their home. She was an aging lesbian and quite an athlete, from what I understood when I found out more about her in her younger days. Quite an athlete, softball,
Mm,
basketball player, etc. Very excelled in all these things. And here it was really falling through our social safety nets. And as I described earlier, isolated and fearful of existing programs. I
mhm.
spent probably the first time, probably a 45-minute call to convince her that she could trust the group and we would help.
Yeah.
So that
Mm,
was challenging, but
that's hard.
that's another story and an example of the folks that just do not trust existing programs. And you'll probably find more of this in the rural communities.
Maybe, yeah, but I think sometimes in urban communities, people are also scared
Oh,
and the
sure. Yeah,
community
yeah.
has changed around them and they're afraid to let people in
Exactly.
or to go out. So you're right. And so it might take more time, right? More investment from the people who work in the at the area agency on aging or whoever's providing the services out there. It takes a little more time than just, we want to come to your house and give you this resource. You have to build that trust and that relationship.
I talk a lot about providers on several
Mm,
levels, medical, whatever. And I always use the example. I might have used it during the training. Um, my spouse had to go to PT, physical therapy, and the physical therapist pulled out their car with their little computer because that's how they do things these days. They take their soap notes and etc.
yeah.
And there was a little tiny rainbow flag on the back of that computer. We knew we were in good hands. Do you
It
understand what I'm
just was
saying?
a little signal that lets you know this
And no one
person gets
else
it.
is going to notice that except the people that need to see it. So that could
Yeah.
go with, anybody that's out in the field, in any type of social work, et cetera, et cetera. I always say it's those little things that helps bridge that gap and build some
Mhm.
trust.
So that's one really good suggestion for folks who are listening who want to be able to make a difference, who, want to advocate, be a part of something bigger, be an ally. So What else? If listeners could take just one action after this conversation who've been listening to this podcast, whether they're a professional, like I said, an ally, a self advocate, what would you want that to be to better support and include LGBTQ older adults?
That's a very good question. And I feel like I'm going to have to dig deeper. If I had one thing, boy, there's so many
It's
things.
tricky to pick one. Okay, you can pick a couple.
Well, no, my first gut instinct is I always remember the phrase, treat everybody with non-judgmental, positive, loving regard. And I think most of the folks in the field do that. And when in doubt, refer out.
That's a good one.
So
Hmm.
the moral of that story is if you're feeling you need some advice on this, reach out. There's SAVES, national groups. There's Golden Rainbows of Illinois South. There is
Yeah.
Equality Illinois. There's so many groups you can reach out to. You can go and do a Google search and find resources that can help you navigate the LGBT community.
And we'll put some of those links in the show notes so people can find them if they're listening to the podcast.
And there's also links to our report that the commission did. We
Oh, good.
finalized our report. I'm
Okay.
very, very, very proud of that body of work. It's extraordinary, and we're doing our best to make sure this body of work doesn't just end up on a shelf, that it becomes a living document.
Great. So
Yeah,
we'll link to that report as well. What's it called?
the Illinois LGBT Commission report. I encourage everyone to read it. Again, the Aging LGBT Commission for the state of Illinois did an extraordinary job. And again, as I said, there were folks from all facets of life, other departments with the state of Illinois, community members, et cetera. And they did an outstanding job in identifying the problems, providing testimony, and giving some where we should go, a template to where we need to go.
So there's some next steps in there.
Well, the
There's
next steps
data.
is, we can all get a seat at the table at the multi-sector
Yeah,
plan on aging and engaging Illinois, right? And
that's right.
that's the way I can see we continue our work for another 10 years at least.
Perfect way to close us out with the multi-sector plan on aging. Thank you so much for joining us on the Age Guide, Billy.
Thank you for having me.
Hello and welcome to your Medicare Minutes. My name is Val Guzman and I'm the Benefit Access Supervisor here at Age Guide. This Pride Month, it's important to highlight how Medicare supports the health and well-being of LGBTQ older adults. Medicare covers essential services like preventive screenings, mental health care, and prescription drugs. Medicare beneficiaries have the right to respectful, non-discriminatory care from providers that accept Medicare, and you have access to telehealth, wellness visits, and counseling services. SHIP counselors can review these benefits with you so you know your rights and receive quality health care with dignity and respect. Visit ageguide.org or call us at 800-528-2000 to speak with a SHIP counselor.
Thank you for joining us on The Age Guide, where we explore the insights, experiences, and practical strategies that help us thrive as we age. To learn more about how Age Guide Northeastern Illinois is advocating for older adults and caregivers, visit us at ageguide.org or call our offices at 630-293-5990. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share to help others find us. Join us next month as we continue exploring what it means to age well.